Liz Cheney has a 95% conservative voting record. Who's going to believe it if she says she's fully behind Harris? But if she says, none of us can, in good conscience, vote for Donald Trump, I think that has a good effect.
Well, it's Tuesday. Welcome to Just Between Us for our faithful Bulwark viewers and listeners. And I'm delighted to be joined by my friend and colleague, Will Salatin. Hi, Will.
Hi, Mona. How are you doing?
I am fine. So it is that moment, like for all of this year, we have been, since January, everybody's saying, well, of course, we can talk about the political race, but it doesn't really kick in until Labor Day. So this is it. We are in it now. How are you feeling in general?
I am feeling so much better than I did 2 months ago, as we all are. But I'm really starting to get worried about, I hear from other liberals who are way too sanguine about the state of affairs right now. Are you hearing this? I don't know.
So I have not heard that, but I mean, I haven't heard it directly. I've heard it secondhand, that people who are, saying, yeah, I've heard that people are not worried enough. And the fact is, I mean, if you look at where the polls are, comparing it to, say, Hillary Clinton at this time in 2016, Harris is behind where Clinton was. Now, of course, Harris has an asterisk and Clinton didn't. And we all know in hindsight that things happened, right? I mean, you had the FBI director come out, what was it, 10 days before the election and announce he was reopening the investigation, et cetera. So who knows? But just in terms of sheer polling, in a sane world, we wouldn't be in a situation where it is within the margin of error, but it is.
Right. It's what I tried to tell my friends is, first of all, the area where we would feel comfortable. I think Bill Kristol said Harris should be, after the convention bounce. Who knows if convention bounces even happen anymore or in this context. Right. But after the bounce, she should be over 50%. She is not. She's, in the sort of 49% range, and Trump's with, as you said, in these swing states, it's within a point in a lot of them. And as you point out, lots of things can happen. The one thing that does give me comfort is if we compare it to the Hillary race, Trump was new. And Mona, I have been watching a ton of the focus groups that Sarah does with, swing voters, people who voted for Trump, then Biden, or Trump twice, and now aren't sure about it. And so many of them, when they are asked about their vote for Trump in 2016, say, well, he was new. I was excited about that. He was an outsider. He was a businessman. And that's all over. So now we have this idea of Trump fatigue, which Harris can play out. So I'm skeptical that it will play out the way it did in 2016. I'm more worried about something like a terrorist attack, which could completely shake things up. Right.
That's right. Or some kind of, any kind of extraneous or, what's that word that the economists always use? Oh. Not a black swan, but anyway, the word I'm thinking of, anything like that, a terrorist attack or a problem in the financial markets or a new war or something, will hurt the party in power. But it is amazing to me. As way, when I said Harris has an asterisk, I didn't explain that. What I meant is that she has gained an unbelievable amount of ground. So she's on the upswing. That's what I meant by the asterisk. She's still gaining support, a little less in the last 2 weeks than in the first couple, but still she is gaining, and Trump is staying flat. So that's the asterisk, and that's great. But let's discuss something related, which is this morning, Pat Toomey, former Pennsylvania senator, well regarded in the very crucial swing state, he appeared on CNBC and said he's not voting for Trump. By the way, he's somebody who voted to convict Trump in his second impeachment. So he said he's not voting for Trump, but he can't support Kamala Harris. Now, so Tim and I talked about this morning on the Bulwark pod, but I want to pursue it a little further because the role of Republicans in these next crucial weeks is something very near and dear to the heart of us at the Bulwark. Many of us are former Republicans. And I'm wondering your sense, I want to feel you out on this, your sense of, as a matter of strategy, okay, is it okay, I'm trying to be generous here, is it okay for somebody like Toomey to say, well, I can't vote for Trump. I'm not endorsing Harris, but I can't vote for Trump. Is that enough? Because it's hard to get Republicans to vote for Harris. They don't want to vote for a Democrat. It's just too hardwired in their psyches that they are Republicans, they don't vote for Democrats. But if they do get the message, though, that it's okay not to vote for president at all because they can't vote for Trump, is that a better strategy to just do it the Toomey way? Or should it be, no, we need more people like perhaps Liz Cheney, who may be making an announcement this month, we hear, I hope. But anyway, we'll see. Is it better for a Republican, a leading influential Republican, to say, not only can I not vote for Trump, but I'm affirmatively supporting Harris? What do you think?
So, okay, my point of view, first of all, I'm operating with a very low standard, Mona. I am so, what alarms me is the legions and legions of supposedly responsible Republicans who are falling in line behind Trump. Every one of them who does that adds to the permission structure for this evil. So
100%.
Anyone I can subtract from that, I score as a victory. What they say beyond that is not so important to me. So in other words, I am less concerned with whether Pat Toomey or Liz Cheney or anyone says to vote for Kamala Harris. Now, I understand the math. I understand that mathematically, if you can add a Harris vote, that's twice the benefit of subtracting a Trump vote. So right. I hear you on that, but I don't ask that. What I would rather focus on is how and where you deliver the message. So it's less important to me that Liz Cheney or Pat Toomey or anyone says vote for Kamala Harris, or I encourage you, than that, say, John Kelly, Trump's former chief of staff, comes out and does a TV ad saying, I would much rather be public about it, say, I was there when he's called our fallen soldiers suckers and losers, our Marines.
Yes.
That's much more important to me than the exact message. And I also think, Mona, it would have more credibility with conservatives who know that they disagree with Harris on a whole bunch of issues. Like, Liz Cheney has a 95% conservative voting record. Who's going to believe it if she says she's fully behind Harris? But if she says, none of us can, in good conscience, vote for Donald Trump, I think that has a good effect. What is your position on this?
So, you have to tease apart, you said Cheney disagrees with Harris, probably 95% of the time on policy. First of all, I'm not sure it's 95% of the time anymore. I mean, when it comes to foreign policy, which is incredibly important for many of us, foreign policy was the thing that brought me to the Republican Party. I was a fierce anti-communist, pro-liberty person. And I didn't my first book was called Useful Idiots because I didn't like the fact that the Democrats were soft on the Cold War and always trying to minimize the differences and so on. And the Republicans were the party that said we are for liberty and we are for democracy and we are for a very powerful United States role in the world. Well, if you look at the world now, and I am still, when I come to vote, I still weight foreign policy very heavily. Ukraine is going to be put on an altar and sacrificed, handed back to Putin if Trump is reelected. And it will not only be a catastrophe for Ukraine, it will be a catastrophe for lovers of liberty the world over, because the message it sends is that naked acts of aggression are rewarded. This one is definitely a plus in the Democratic Party's camp. The parties have flipped in terms of who's tougher on foreign policy and on defending liberty and democracy around the world. So it's not even clear that Liz Cheney would be, would disagree with Kamala Harris most of the time. On foreign policy, I think she would find it more congenial to be with Kamala Harris. But in the end, and I was talking about this with Tim this morning, in the end, it doesn't matter whether you disagree with them, even a lot. It doesn't matter when you're a conservative of conscience, whether you disagree with Kamala Harris on 60, 70% of issues, because the most overriding question is just that Trump and this Republican Party is not fit to govern. And therefore, it's not hard. You have to choose the other way. Now, so I don't think the policy angle is hard. I do, though, think, there was this story over the weekend in the New York Times of, voters Haley voters, what were they going to do in the general? And, some of them said things like, well, I'm a Republican, so I have to vote for a Republican. They didn't say what they would necessarily support Trump. And this was a person who explicitly said he doesn't like Trump. But since there is that sort of, inertia that's at work, a lot of, maybe the better word is friction, to get a Republican to vote for a Democrat, maybe the better strategy is to just, point out how awful Trump is, with the goal of, and the fact that leaders are willing to vote for Kamala, with the goal of getting them to stay home, right? Because that's more doable than getting them to vote for Harris. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Let me say a couple of things. I agree with much of that. First of all, I fully agree, and I just want to be clear about what the right thing to do is. I think people, Bulwark readers, listeners know this. The right thing to do is to vote for Kamala Harris, because whatever your disagreements with her on policy, and people who are more conservative than me, like you, have made this point, the fundamental things are protecting the Constitution, protecting America's role in the world. These are sort of bedrock issues, and we can argue about the rest. And honestly, a Republican Congress, or even a half Republican Congress, can prevent some of the worst excesses that a sort of left-wing administration would do. But the number one goal is to administer beatings to this Trump party. Just simply administer one beating after another, because if you want if you want a sensible conservative party, you have to make them lose with this this fake Republican Party. Yep. So a fake conservative party. So we're in agreement on that. I wanted to clarify, when I said Liz Cheney is 95%, it's about a 90 to 95% conservative voting record. Not necessarily that she disagrees with Kamala Harris. And as you point out, Mona, Kamala Harris is not 0% conservative, particularly on foreign policy. Harris was quite clear in her convention speech about, I know what America's role in the world is. And I know, she's made a number of statements that I think were designed to authentically express, if you are a conservative, you will agree with me about a whole host of things. And those are some of them. But Mona, I have been watching Donald Trump on the campaign trail for the last couple of weeks. And here are some of the things that Donald Trump, if you're a conservative person, like a Reaganite conservative, here are things that Donald Trump has been saying: that we should end the Ukraine war immediately, i.e. give Putin whatever he demands in order to back out, which includes part of Ukraine, which then encourages more invasions. I'm not going to defend NATO countries, says Trump. They aren't paying enough. Russia can do whatever the hell it wants. No changes to Social Security and Medicare, according to Trump. No cuts at all, no reforms to these massive entitlement programs that are the number one threat to America's solvency. Tariffs for everyone, massive taxes on all imported goods. By the way, the Democrats are running against that. They're saying that's a massive tax increase, which was the conservative position on tariffs, right? So now it's being adopted by the Democratic Party. Free IVF for everyone. It's like 10 $10 billion a year or something like that. Anyone, Trump says anyone who wants it, literally anyone who wants it. Terminating the Constitution, we already heard that one. We have now heard him repeatedly say, they told me that banning the flag burning is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional. The hell it is, ban it anyway. So open defiance of the Supreme Court. So if you're a constitutionalist, if you believe in America's role in the world, if you believe in fiscal solvency, if you believe in any of these things, why are you voting for this guy? I mean, honestly, how far is Kamala Harris really farther from you than Donald Trump? So just going to leave that out there.